year 2087, a Freedom of Information request resulted in the declassification of nearly 100,000 documents. These documents revealed the existence of a secret division formed as a skunkworks in the Central Intelligence Agency. This organization is known as the AORD and is still active to this day. The scope of the declassified documents covers the years of 1987 to 2037 and goes a long way to explaining the events that unfolded at that time, as well as the direction the path of history has taken as a result. Despite heavy redactions and documents left out entirely, the FOI release was one of the most shocking collections of data ever revealed to the public. These are those documents. Case number... The Hanging Tree. Object: Risk Level 2. Kept in place in County, Colorado, USA. Discovery: after experiencing a pair of unusual worker deaths, the mining corporation contacted us directly, as they were formerly an AORD shell company. From their records, which were deemed by project supervisor to be trustworthy, they had prospected an area outside of Colorado that was likely to contain another rare active ores. Under the guise of a normal gold mining operation, the company purchased the land and the 1800s ghost town within it from the Colorado Historical Society. After the purchase was finalized, they began excavating an area some kilometers away from the Hill Historical Ghost Town. The area was once an overhanging rock formation, which was blasted into a hill of debris by miners of the Old West. According to the information provided to them by the Colorado Historical Society, this was done in a final attempt to extract gold from the former mine, after which the prospecting town was abandoned. In contradiction to this, the company found a considerable amount of gold ore within the blasted debris in their initial dig site. This trend continued, and after taking samples from the original mining site, they found the mine was still riddled with unmined gold ore. Right away, the foreman of the operation, a former case officer, considered this suspicious and instructed his workers to work cautiously, telling them there may be reactive chemicals hidden within the debris. After excavating for an additional 2 weeks, they discovered a tree buried beneath the rock and soil. On seeing that the tree was still alive, and even thriving despite being buried for over 100 years, the foreman had the team carefully excavate the tree as if it were an archaeological dig. According to him, he thought it was very likely that ores in the soil had kept the tree alive all this time, but in the interest of safety, he acted under the assumption that the tree itself had some sort of anomalous effect. After exposing the full tree, apart from its roots, which were left underground in an abundance of caution, it was observed to be a medium-sized cottonwood tree. Apart from its unusual liveliness, it didn't appear to have any other anomalous properties, even after observing it for a full week. After the observation period, foreman took samples from the ground around the tree and found trace ore as well as elements of... With this evidence in hand, the foreman acted on the assumption that the minerals were indeed the cause for the tree's longevity, and continued the mining operation into the side of the newly exposed cliff behind the tree. Things continued normally until one of the miners was found dead under the tree. The worker had suffocated and had rope marks around his neck. However, there was no rope found in the area. Considering there were no signs of a struggle, the foreman informed the other workers that he had hanged himself, and a coyote or another kind of wild animal had run away with the rope during the night. The crew seemed to believe this account and continued working as usual. However, the foreman set up security cameras facing the tree that very day. Another 2 weeks passed, and another worker was found dead under the tree from an apparent hanging. The foreman immediately contacted his superiors, who then contacted us. All workers at this site who were unaware of the true nature of their mining operation were given the MK-15 procedure, and were reassigned to other mining operations. The area was then quarantined, and a research team was put together to study the tree. On handing over ownership of the land, the mining company also gave us all equipment used within the vicinity of the tree, as well as the security footage of the second death, video log 1-1. Research Journal 1-1. Lead researcher Dr. After a rather death-defying drive through the Rocky Mountains, I was greeted with an immediate debriefing with no chance to stretch my legs or get my hands to stop shaking. I was shown the security tapes, and I must say it is rather fascinating. Clearly the tree has some effect on the human mind. However, it is still unclear whether or not it's an intelligent creature or simply an anomalous tree with only primal motivations. Unfortunately, the tape didn't have any audio attached to it, so whatever the victim was saying as he died is impossible to suss out. I tried running it through the lip-reading analysis, but his mouth movements were too unusual for the AI to understand, and it came out as a garbled mess of noises. Naturally, it's completely possible he really did just make a garbled mess of noises. It would certainly make sense for someone being hanged. I seriously doubt it, though. The wide eyes and the strained movements of the tongue and glottis seem like speech, forced speech, frantic, and perhaps ritualistic, forced speech. We won't know until we start getting some research subjects in there, though. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to figure out how it chooses its victims. Research Journal 1-4, Lead Researcher Dr. We hadn't even finished setting up before the tree took its first victim. And now we have to tear it all down and move it back another 100 meters. It was one of the security team, mercifully. I have a hard enough time getting the research team I've worked with for years to do the things the way I prefer them. If I had to replace any one of them suddenly, that would be yet another distraction. There's plenty distractions already. For one, the presence of metals in the ground has made it practically impossible to calibrate our equipment on top of the usual side effects it has on the human mind. To top it off, everyone knows there's metals in the mine here, so I have to constantly keep an eye on everyone to make sure they aren't going off the pocket their retirement plan. I understand the appeal, but without the right equipment to store it, it'll sour our entire stay here, even if one person tries to keep a hunk of in their quarters. I might have to ask the project supervisor if she can send us some Psy-Mat containers just so I can keep everyone happy. If everyone gets a piece above board, it's less likely I'll have to deal with people trying to smuggle it. Back to the matter at hand. Last night, one of the security staff, I think his name was, walked up to the tree and began hanging just like the man in the video. Unfortunately, we only had 1 or 2 cameras up at the time, and neither one of them was equipped with audio, so once again, I'm unable to make out what on earth he was saying as he died. I thought I could hear something as I laid in my bed last night, but to me it sounded more like a groundhog or a small animal squeaking and throwing a fit. Of course, when I got up in the morning, I was informed of what it truly was. Some of the others heard it as well, and the ones stationed a bit closer to the tree said it sounded like someone trying to speak through heavy strain. In retrospect, it really did sound like that, which at least matches the perceived reality of the situation. Of course, someone shouldn't be able to speak at all when they're being hanged, but at least it's not a perfectly clear voice or one that doesn't belong to the person hanging. There's hope yet that this project won't be as strange as the last one. Naturally, the entire team is on edge now. From what I understand, the man who died had not been the one to get closest to the tree. We can at least rule out contact as the method of infection, but that also means that nearly any one of us could be the next to walk up there. I do hope adding 100 meters is enough. I'm thinking about making it 200 just to put everyone at ease. Hopefully we can get the tree to only take research subjects from now on. I should have enough microphones to put one on about a dozen of the subjects and walk them by the tree. We'll just have to see if the tree takes to it. Sometimes I don't know whether or not to hope these things are intelligent. Maybe if it can be reasoned with, it'll play ball. Then again, it's just as likely it would target the research team out of spite. I suppose I should keep that strategy in my back pocket for now. Research Journal 1-8, Lead Researcher Dr. We've now finished setting up our stations further away. By a stroke of luck, we managed to get the cable spools in just when we had gotten to the point of the setup. With everything in place, it's time to start trying things out. Tonight I'll just have one of the research subjects sleep under the tree and see if that works. It may not tell us anything about its range of influence, but it would be good to know if we can draw its ire away from the critical staff. On that note, the tree has yet to take another victim. I sincerely wish that meant we've moved our research station to a safe distance, but I've learned never to have hopeful thoughts like that while I'm on site. I've been trying to learn more about security team member the one that hanged. I have a hunch that something in his history may reveal why he was chosen as a victim. So far, I've been hitting a wall of red tape. Considering most of the security staff are former Special Forces or Navy SEALs, that's hardly a surprise. But I did think it would at least be slightly easier than this for a head scientist in the AORD to get a simple docket on one of my team. What could be so important that the top secret of the agency doesn't have access to it? Well, I'm sure it's just a bureaucratic thing, but it drives me crazy. We really should have our own database. Having to interact with the DoD and the military is painfully frustrating and time-consuming. I did manage to learn a few things from the other team members, including his replacement, who had apparently worked with him before. They say he was always quiet, didn't like to tell tales like a lot of the rest of them do. Worked well with others, but mostly kept to himself. I think this might be connected, but only tangentially. Rather than him being taciturn as the reason he died, I think the reason he died may have resulted in him being taciturn. Just a guess, of course, but I do have quite a bit of experience with these type of anomalous objects. They generally have some kind of rule set, and it will very often have some sort of ethical, cultural, or symbolic value tied to it. Considering the symbolism the hanging tree has to the Old West, and some other periods of time, potentially even now, depending on who you ask, I'd say it's likely some form of moral judgment. Perhaps our security officer was secretly a monster, or perhaps not so secretly. The security staff appeals to a certain type of person, after all. On that note, I've also had some of the analysts running around looking for more specific information about the ghost town. So far, there hasn't been anything we didn't already know. Formed during the first gold boom, full of cowboys and scumbags, and shut down when the ground supposedly ran out of gold. No mention of a tree, though, and strangely no mention of hanging. Normally you'd expect there to be at least a single hanging in an Old West town. If not some outlaw or thief, then at very least a Chinese or black person. That's how most of these places were, from what I've read. Not a single record of a hanging, though. It's strange, obviously, but there's still gold in the mine, and there was a mystical tree that kills people, which had clearly been intentionally buried. We're not uncovering a mystery here. Obviously, they thought it was an evil tree and wanted to get away from it. The question is, did they have any information about it we don't currently have? And if so, where did they hide it? Research Journal 1-15. Lead researcher Dr. Well, we've had our first successful test. Perhaps a bit too successful. We sent a single research subject to stay near the tree every single night for the last 6 days. Then we had them stay in a much closer structure with doors we could remotely control. After 5 days, we thought maybe there was just always 2 weeks in between victims, but the test is already underway, so we just kept going as we'd intended. The next night, every single one of those research subjects marched to the tree, and all of them were hanged together. When was hanged, as well as the victim of the security tapes we were given, there was a shadowy noose that lowered from the tree and affixed itself to the victim as they stood there in a trance. This was no different, except the noose took a lot longer to snake its way around all of their necks. Then it took much longer to lift them off the ground. It's unclear whether or not there's some sort of limit to the tree's strength, or if it was moving slowly so as to not let any of them drop out of the middle. Either way, there isn't quite enough there to prove intelligence or forethought. We'll have to see if it can take more weight, and I suppose it would be wise to test how many people it can, or is willing, to hang at once. Hopefully it's not much more than 5. I only have so many test subjects. Furthermore, the image of 5 men hanging simultaneously is something I'll never unsee. It looked like their heads were a cluster of grapes, and just as purple. I'm glad the victims stay in the trance as they die. I definitely don't want to see what that would look like if they were struggling. Unfortunately, because of the wide variety of test subjects that were sent to stay near the tree, we haven't been able to spot any particular pattern for what kind of people the tree will hang. There's still my conjecture that it has some sort of judicial method, and the fact that it hanged 5 research subjects at once, all of which are guilty of at least murder, if not worse, seems to point that direction. That said, it will be intensely difficult to test that if that is indeed the case, as no one amongst the research subject is truly innocent. and it would be difficult to justify using anyone else for the test. That said, if it is just a vengeful justice tree, there won't be much reason for us to hold on to it. I just hope we're outside of its range. There's not too many people among the research staff who could be considered innocent either. We've been subjecting to horrible, extra-normal circumstances for quite some time now. If I'm right about this tree, it may already have us all in order from tallest to shortest. In other news, one of the analysts found an old diary under a floorboard in the ghost town. She just found it a few moments ago at the time of this writing, so I haven't had much time to sift through it yet. It's clear they knew about the tree, though. The last 20 pages of this book are all doodles of it, with different people hanging. We're trying to get an idea for what the tree's requirements for hanging are, so we're sending in research subjects that all have the same conviction. So far, it hasn't taken to any more of them, but I'm sure it will. This case can't seem to decide between inconsistency and predictability. We know the hanging tree is going to take somebody or somebodies, but we don't know when. We know the hanging tree affects the mind of the victim, but we don't know how. I'm starting to feel that the tree is indeed intelligent, just based on how many theories that aren't coming together. It's chaotic to the point that I feel it's intentional. On those lines, I've done my best to decipher the audio from the last hanging. Unfortunately, the microphone was just too far away, and the voices were too many for us to figure out what they were saying, even with the help of the AI. I can at least confirm that they are indeed saying something. It's not just gargling and choking. There's definitely words in there, probably English words. At the very least, words with English-sounding syllables. I have no proof. I have no reason to believe this, but it seems like too big of a coincidence that it hangs someone before we get the mic set up, and the next time it hangs someone, it's 5 people at once. I might be looking for patterns where there aren't any, but you'll have to forgive me. My last project was... And if you have the clearance to know about that, then you'll know how it ended up. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to go into it, even in my personal journal, but the point is there was a very important pattern and we didn't see it until after the fact. It wasn't my fault. None of us noticed. I wish I had noticed, of course, but I wasn't the only one who didn't see it. Luckily, this tree doesn't seem to have the far-reaching effects that the mud and it did. I suppose that's why I was put on this project. Something mild, to take my mind off of what I saw and heard. If that was the motivation, I wish they'd given me something more cut and dry. Even if the tree hanged everyone that ever got within 15 feet of it, at least then... I shouldn't write that down. A lot of people have come that close to the tree. I just wish I knew what the pattern was here, even just a little. I'm sure I'm jumping the gun. We've only witnessed 2 hangings, but still... Just a clue would be nice. There's no such luck from the diary we found in the ghost town. It was very interesting, of course, and it proves conclusively that the former residents buried the tree intentionally, but they didn't seem to know what made it work either. Apparently it hanged a prostitute, then a minor, then a thief, then another minor, then the sheriff, and then a child. Apparently the first minor to be hanged was known to beat his wife. Following the pattern, people thought the sheriff and the other minor must have been doing something wrong, and that's probably true considering the time period. Then it hanged someone's child, though, and that's when they truly became afraid of the tree. I suppose it's easy enough to live next to a monster that only eats people you don't like. There's no telling why it hanged the kid, but it divided the town. Half of them thought the kid must have stolen something or killed his neighbor's cat, and the other half were convinced the tree was just killing whoever went near the mine. At some point, they'd started to believe the mine was haunted or cursed, which is likely a result of the high concentration of metal in the area. The conflict over the tree only made the belief more substantial, and once a group starts kicking off with that kind of thinking, soon enough, everyone's seen the face of the devil in the blackest parts, so that they're mine. I was foolish to think these cowpokes would have put together the pieces. God, I hope it doesn't take 100 hangings. I really don't want to have to send for more subjects again. If I do, that bastard will put another tally under my name for his stupid betting pool. So childish. As if we're all killing as many people as we can on purpose. They're test subjects, for God's sake. Sometimes a test doesn't go the way you think it will. Anyway, I'm gonna start putting wireless microphones on all the subjects after the next hanging. I'd do it now, but we've already started the official experiment, so we can't change it yet without declaring a new one. I could do that, but I don't want to make any more waves. Research Diary 1-35. Lead researcher, Doc. After it hanged two of the last bunch, I assumed there must be something about the type of people they were. From looking at the dossiers of all the deceased, they all had some level of Irish ancestry. I thought, well, it was possible the tree is bigoted after all, maybe having picked up some of the attitude that surrounded it when it first sprouted. If that was the case, I would expect it to go after black or Chinese people, but Irish works too. Then it hanged one of the research team. Her name was... She's the one whose birthday we just celebrated 2 days ago. And of course, like clockwork, we find out she wasn't even a little bit Irish. All German and Dutch, and a very small portion of Nigerian. Clean record as well. The worst thing she's done is work for the AORD. She never once made the decision to send someone to their death. Just studying the sensors and writing reports. It's getting to me. It has to be doing it on purpose. It has to be. Of course, the microphone didn't pick her up either. It was working just fine when we tested it in the morning. It was surely close enough, as we had a research subject put it right in front of the tree. But no, it broke, just in time for the tree to take another one of my crew. So now, on top of an entire staff of people running around in blind panic, moving the camp as fast as they can, and the plunging drop in morale, we also haven't learned anything. I briefly considered making everyone on the site wear microphones. That's the kind of thought I've been driven to. Madness. And once again, the tree is nothing. It's just a stupid tree that kills people. It's all the fault of that and their disgusting brood that I'm like this now. That I've become this nervous wreck, desperately trying to hold the team together as they're being torn from me one by one. But the past is the past, and I have to do my best to put it behind me. It is just a tree. Just a tree that hangs certain people who come within a certain distance. Hopefully no more than half a kilometer. That's where we're at now. I expect there will be a few research subjects that try to run away. As effective as the explosive collars should be, it never seems to stop a few of them from trying. Stupid. All of it stupid. Research Diary 1-45. Lead researcher Dr. 3 research subjects. All of them hooked up with beyond top-of-the-line microphones. Anachronistic technology designed from materials we pulled from the fallen eagle. All of it breaks. Not just before they're hanged, but the moment before they started talking. The very second they were about to make noise, the mics cut out. It can't be radio interference. Those mics use quantum entanglement. It can't be quantum interference because there is nothing on the sensors that would indicate that was happening. It's the tree. It must be the tree. It's toying with me. It's not just the microphones either. It's been everything. These last 3 subjects. Completely different crimes, completely different places of origin, and completely different ancestry. Not a trace of crossover. None. The odds of that are ridiculous. The fact that we even had 3 research subjects who didn't share a lick of DNA is astonishing. It's beyond coincidence. This is malevolent affectation of probability. This tree must have affected the past to influence which research subjects were chosen for this case. But for what? To fuck with me? No, that's it. That's it. It's not the tree. The tree, it's just a tree. It's the is changing circumstance from within her sickening pit of amniotic fluid. Yes, that has to be it. I can almost feel her smiling at me, like I'm nothing but a toy for to play with. It makes so much sense now. She's probably extending the reach of this tree as well, and affecting its choices of victims to make it more random, to make it more unpredictable, just to kick me in the teeth with my own failure. Joke's on you, freak. We already came up with a way to stop you from influencing the material plane, and I'm activating it the very second I put down this Research Diary 1-55. I think it worked. The last victim had Chinese ancestry, and the microphone, Well, it picked up something. Perhaps the is still trying to spread her influence here, because I still couldn't make out what was being said. I could at least hear a few words, but nothing that fit together. There wasn't even enough for the AI to take a guess at what it could be. I've secreted a copy of the audio into my personal files. I'm not sure if I can ever learn anything from it, but this was the first audio I got of a hanging man on that tree, so I'm keeping it as a trophy. On that note, I do expect the tree to act more predictably. The subject it killed was the one that came the closest to it on the way in. Furthermore, and this is just a hunch, but I imagine his ancestry may have something to do with it. If the next victim is black or Asian, I'll be as good as sure. I hadn't considered this until we started looking further into all the DNA tests, but nearly everyone from this time period has some level of Nigerian ancestry. That should be even more so the case for back then. Yes, I believe this tree is racist. It likely picked up and waves from the surrounding people, and along with the coincidental effects of the or became an anomaly. There's always a pattern, even if the pattern is a complete lack of a pattern. Audio log 1-55. Research Diary 1-56. As expected, the next victim fit the mold. Largely Nigerian descent with some Dutch and French. For some reason I still can't get the audio equipment to behave though. It can't be the generator is still running fine. In fact, it's been drawing far less electricity, and the crystals inside remain untainted, which should mean that she's either given up on harassing me further or she's found something else to do for now. I'm going to have to talk to Control about a more permanent solution if she continues to target me. Regardless, the audio should have nothing to do with her, but that does mean I'm still in the dark on it. I can't detect any or subdimensional interference that could account for interrupting a wired transmission. There's the expected issue of the board scrambling, but that should only affect wireless transmissions, and even then it's not this severe. Perhaps there's a much larger than expected load of reactive materials in the earth beneath the tree. That might do it, but I still think that won't be it. I'm sure if there was that much, or we would have come here and tried to dig it out already. Furthermore, it would still show up on our sensors, as long as it's material we're already familiar with. I'm not exactly sure what the strategy should be if it is an unknown, active, or material. Really, there can be no expectations made if that is the case. I think the process will be the same if it's an unknown material or if the cause is just unknown. Either way, something is affecting the signal, so all I should have to do is strengthen it until we get some decent audio. I have a feeling that once we do, it'll blow this case wide open. No anomaly that forces victims to speak has nothing to say. I'm sure that once we hear what the hanged man is saying, we'll have some idea of how this tree works and what sort of rules it has. Everything has rules. People speak to make themselves understood, and I believe this tree is no different. Research Diary 1-63. Another victim taken. This time non-Chinese Asian descent. However, I don't think the specifics of what part of Asia the victim is from will matter much to the tree. It was presumably born around the time of Western expansion. It's likely to confuse any Asian target for Chinese and any dark-skinned target for a freed slave. It's not a problem. It still fits the pattern. Furthermore, it hasn't taken anyone from the team since we set up the generator. So I have no reason to believe it's returning to a malevolent randomness. Just can't tell the difference between different Asian ethnicities, that's all. It's not a problem. The audio issue, however, is still not resolved. I've tried a few of the traditional methods of signal strengthening, but there aren't very many options, and without knowing what the actual problem is, it's quite difficult to know what to do. In that regard, there's still no trace of what might be causing the audio signal to weaken on its way here. By all accounts, it should be working fine. We've replaced the entire cable manifold 3 times now, which was a pain for the drone operators. Of course. It's so simple. What have I been thinking this entire time? If the signal is weakening as it travels, I'll just have it travel less distance. I'll have the drone operators plug the recorder straight into the microphone. It's so obvious I can't believe I missed it for this long. You stupid animal. Why didn't you think of it earlier? Why didn't my team catch it either? They should have noticed the answer as well. Well, I suppose they're all on edge. We've lost 2 of our compatriots. It's no wonder all of us didn't catch it immediately. This case has been much more stressful than any of us expected. Hopefully this new plan will work out and we'll be able to put it to bed shortly after. Research Diary 1-67. We've set up the recorder next to the microphone right against the tree, and we've developed a way to safely transfer the data from the recorder to another medium within a Gauss Faraday cage. I'm not taking any chances with something that's been near the tree. Too much has happened already for me to start slipping this close to the finish line. Oh right, on that note, an analyst went snooping around the ghost town and found another few scraps of paper. I explicitly stated there was no need for anyone to disturb the historical landmark, but I suppose you just can't tell an analyst not to go snooping. Anyway, I read it just a few moments ago. It's nothing important, really. Just a singular account from an unnamed author talking about the tree. They say the natives warned them away from the mountain before the town was even built. He says they stayed far away from this area for thousands of years. This yokel seems to think that the tree has always been there, and that it's always been cursed. But if that's the case, why would it only be targeting Asians and people with African heritage? No, it doesn't make sense. If what this person wrote does turn out to be true, and the Native Americans avoided this mountain, it's far more likely that they avoided it due to the metals in the area. It's proven that active materials can have detrimental effects on mental health, and especially sleep patterns. It must be that the natives encountered materials in the ancient past. Then, in the Old West, some combination of metals and circumstances caused a growing cottonwood tree to become a mindless killing machine with the biases and values of your average 1800s ex-Confederate soldier. It's not just conjecture. The data supports my theory. It would be conjecture to take this one piece of drivel written by an uneducated cowboy at face value. The generator's still running. There hasn't been an attempted breach on it since we set it up. It's just a weird tree. Research Diary 1-69. For some reason the audio still isn't working. It must be that the actual sound is being interfered with. Or maybe it's how it's being written to the medium. Maybe if I use an analog method of recording. I don't know how long it will take for us to get our hands on that, but it might be our only workable option. If that doesn't work, I'll really have no idea what to do. I'll just have to have one of the research subjects listen to what the hanging man is saying so we can just write it down. It's really not ideal. There could be any number of things that an untrained won't know to listen for. And there's even more things the human ear will be unable to notice. I suppose it's fine, though, as long as I get the gist of it. We'll know whether we should try to use this tree or rebury it. In other news, the analysts have all banded against me. It's because of the last hanging. The research subject that the tree chose was not the one I was expecting. There were plenty of options with a higher percentage of African or Asian DNA. Now, the one that was hanged still had some African DNA, mind you. So it's not as if the pattern is broken. But according to the analysts, all of whom are half my age and with less a tenth of my experience in the AORD, say this represents a dangerous alteration of expected behavior. They want to move the camp even further back. It's ridiculous. The pattern is still there. There's absolutely no reason for them to be so spooked. Still, the generator holds strong. Still has failed to breach our defenses. And still the tree only hangs those who a 1800s cowboy might not want in the town. They all put too much stock in that piece of paper they found in the ghost town. The ghost town I specifically told them to stop snooping around in. We know for a fact the tree affected people who lived in that town. Admittedly, we don't know whether or not they came closer to the tree or not, and the ghost town is nearly as far away from the tree as the research station is now. But we don't know exactly how it works. These kids, I understand that they're scared because they lost a coworker, but that's just the nature of the beast. Furthermore, that attitude is bound to start leaking to the rest of the team. I can't let them get to me. I'm on the right track. I know I am. I just have to have our IT team figure out some way to create an antique method of audio recording so we can get done with this. Research Diary 1-77. I was wrong. I was wrong again. It's not just a tree. It's connected to somehow. It might even be one of the... Either way, it's certainly a product of a chaotic subdimensional influence. The same chaos that's taken against me. That's toying with me. Trying to get me to act out. Now there's more blood on my hands because I failed to notice the signs again. Because the tree knew I wouldn't. Because it made me ignore it by playing coy. I was wrong to think that there's always a pattern. It's not that there's a pattern to chaos. It's the pattern can appear to form in chaos, just to fall away when you think you know what to expect. It's surely no coincidence that this happened the very night we got the audio recording to work. It can't be. It's intentional, because it wants me to suffer. I'll surely be asked to resign, and that's fine. I've had enough of this madness. How am I supposed to research things that repel understanding? How can I find the truth in the darkness when the darkness is perfect? Maybe there is no truth. Maybe the laws of the universe are just illusions. Patterns appearing to emerge from utter randomness. Mirages. Maybe nothing can be predicted for long. I'm sorry to and to the rest of the analysts who knew better than me, and now have to suffer the consequences of my inaction. I hope Control will allow me to forget all this. God forgive me, I can't live with another failure. Audio recording cleared for public release. Addendum. As of 2000, the research portion of this case is considered complete, and propriety of the area surrounding the anomaly has been transferred to the production division. The process of retrieving the metals from the mine will be fully automated, and all materials that come near the anomaly will be periodically destroyed. Any further efforts to research the anomaly or its origins are strictly forbidden. FOI is written, produced, and edited by Kit Curtis. The theme song, Illuminati Swagger, was produced by Albert Bahar and made available on upbeat.io. That's upbeat with 2 P's and IO with an I and an O. This month's episode was titled The Hanging Tree, and it's based off what I see every time I close my eyes. If you like this show and want to see more of it, there are certain things you can do to make that happen. You know what I'm talking about. Nobody has to know. Thank you for listening.